Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 128, and I really want to thank you guys right off the bat for watching my vlog last week. There's a ton of views on it, and a lot of you actually went to the hearingup.com website and provided me with some feedback that I was able to take back to my web developer and get fixed on there. I have to say that the launch of the new brand and the new website was really taken well by everyone who follows my channel and all of the providers inside of the Hearing Up provider network as well. So again, a really big thanks to you guys for going and checking that out. It means the world to me. That being said, today I actually want to make a different announcement because there is something else new that I've been working on for a little while, and I do have some significant updates to share with you guys on that. But before I get into that new announcement, if you could do me a huge favor, click that like button. You know that helps out my channel a lot, and I really appreciate it, as well as making sure that you are subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on if you want to see this content regularly, because I do post every single week. All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about this new thing that I've got going on as well. So now that we've got the Hearing Up launch in the rearview mirror and we're continuing to grow that, I also wanted to start another project because, you know, I'm ADD and I just like to do things at all times. And so here we are. And I've actually made a post about this in the past, and I asked if you guys thought that it would be something you'd be interested in if I started a video/audio podcast. And a lot of you actually said yes, that you would be interested. And in fact, enough of you voted in favor of it that I decided that I was going to commit a significant amount of time and money to actually get a podcast going. And so just this last week, we locked up the new podcast studio. So essentially we rented an executive office suite in a medical building. And, you know, it's about, I don't know, what is it, like 11 foot by 15 foot. So it's not a huge space, but it's big enough for us to have a table in there, lighting, all of that stuff in there for 3 individuals to be on the podcast, possibly even 4 individuals to be on a podcast at any given time. And we're essentially going to call it the DrCliffAuD podcast, or maybe just the Dr. Cliff podcast. And the reason I've been waiting to do this is for a couple of reasons. Number one is I really wanted to have a consistent co-host on the show with me. And now that we've hired another provider inside of the clinic, that individual is going to allow me to have someone to kind of bounce ideas back and forth with, maybe debate a little bit with, who knows. You know, Dr. Rachel Cook is going to be that other individual. And we spent basically the entire day yesterday setting up the new podcast space, along with Kelsey Beck, my resident audiologist, who will also be on that podcast from time to time for sure. But we spent a lot of time getting everything set up. But the other thing here is that I have a patient. Her name is Hope. I can't tell you her last name, obviously for HIPAA reasons. Hope, you know who you are. Hope actually told me once she saw my vlog from, I think, either last week or a couple weeks ago, that she knows someone who owns a production company that could actually come in and do some of the production of the podcast. And so after we were setting things up yesterday, I actually had a pre-scheduled call with this individual. And, you know, at the time I was like, I don't know, you know, I'm just used to doing things by myself. You know, I mean, I set up my whole studio here by myself and I edit everything by myself. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to outsource anything. But Hope made a really good point, which is my time is extremely limited. It's already tough to do the things that I do now, and now I'm adding another project on top of it. And so she gave me a name of someone that she knew and trusted that could potentially help out. So I took the phone call. We spoke for about an hour and, you know, weren't really sure what we wanted to do, you know, whether it would be like a consulting thing where they give me advice about how to set things up for doing a podcast, or if they were just going to come in and take over the podcast, meaning professionally produce it. And when I started looking at the numbers and then essentially the complexity of what I want to do on the podcast, I felt like it made sense to do a professionally produced podcast. And the thing is that a couple things. Number one is that it would be very hard for me to run the type of podcast that I was thinking of. I mean, I want to have it to where we have a bunch of different camera angles, where we have different, obviously, microphone setups. We have multiple people. We have people calling into the show. We have potentially guests that are being zoomed in. And it was just a lot of moving parts. And I didn't know if I had the ability to figure all of that stuff out and make it run smoothly, because I really want this to be a smoothly run podcast. And so they actually have this ability to come to your location, set everything up, do the filming session, do it even live. That's the thing, is that I really want this to be live because I want it to be somewhat of a call-in show where you guys can call in and ask your own questions, and then we can provide you with information or answer those questions to the best of our ability. And then, have in other guests and stuff like that. But the point is the complexity of it. I think not that I was underestimating the complexity, but I just know that there's going to be things that happen with it that are going to be well beyond my level of expertise. And I just figure, why not spend the money to actually have it done and done well? There are a number of other podcasts that are out there inside of the hearing loss community, but I want mine to be like really, really top notch and really, really well done, and spend a significant amount of time making it that way. So I just felt like the decision to bring on a professional production company was worth it, even though it's going to be expensive for me. With that said, I just wanted to share with you guys that I'm gonna have to get sponsors for the podcast. So if you guys do tune into the podcast, it's probably gonna be around a 45-minute per episode podcast, where we have different segments talking about different things, have series of different podcasts that all kind of tie in together. And it's going to cost a significant amount of money to actually produce that. And so I'm going to probably have a couple of sponsors each podcast. So you guys will probably have to listen to a couple of different plugs for different brands that are going to sponsor it, so I can at least cover the costs of it. Because otherwise I would not be able to afford doing the podcast. I'd rather have different brands pay for it than ask you guys for money. As you guys know, I've never asked you guys for any money for anything, and I'd like to keep it that way if at all possible. I will be able to use some of that YouTube ad revenue to cover the costs of these episodes as well, of these podcast episodes as well, but I think I can do it without any essentially financial assistance from the viewers of my channel. You just have to suck it up and or listen to some of the plugs that we'll have from these sponsors, because really the sponsors are what makes this type of content really possible. And I promise you I will be as tasteful as possible when I'm plugging those brands essentially in the podcast. The other thing is that we want to be really consistent about when we're doing it. So I want this podcast to be a weekly podcast, and I live in the state of Arizona, so this is where things could get a little bit tricky for anyone who does not live in the state of Arizona. We are on our own time zone. So half of the year we are basically on Pacific time, and then the other half of the year we are basically on Mountain time. And so right now, I think I'm recording this, it's Saturday night at 7:00 p.m., which means that it is 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern. So we're essentially right now in Pacific time zone because of daylight savings time. But come the fall, what will happen is that everybody else will shift back an hour and we will stay at the same time. So I actually want to run this podcast on Thursday evenings at 4 o'clock my time. So we can stop seeing patients a little bit early on Thursday afternoons. Me and whoever else is going to be on the podcast with me is going to drive down essentially a 5-minute drive, not even, to the new podcast studio, and we will go ahead and film our live session then. But the time zones, when they change, the time for you to be on the live podcast is going to change as well. And I will try to keep you guys aware of when those time zone changes are actually happening and what time the podcast will actually air. The thing is that the podcast actually gives me a very long format that I can use. So when you start breaking down all the content that I do, so I have my YouTube videos, which typically go between 5 and 12 minutes long or so. And then I have these vlogs that I do that are kind of more of me just kind of rambling onto the camera that go up to, let's say 20, maybe 25 minutes on a really long vlog. And then I have like my YouTube shorts and the TikTok stuff that we're getting into, and Instagram, which is photos and stuff, but that's more of my like short form content that I have on my channel. And the only thing that we were missing is something that is really long form and that's more interactive. And that's the point here, is that you guys get to interact with me basically only in the comment section, but this will give you guys the ability to actually interact with me on the podcast in real time. And if you end up calling into the show with a really interesting question, we're going to be given that question or have you come on to the show to ask that question so we can provide you with answers. And I just think it's a really good way to stay engaged with the entire community that has watched me up until this point. And we have a couple 100,000 subscribers on the channel. We get millions of views a month on the YouTube channel content. And I want this just to be another way that different people can interact with the information that we're sharing. Now, this is a huge time commitment, which actually has me a little bit nervous because, committing every single week to doing a show at a very specific time, having different moving parts, so having a production crew come in every single Thursday, having a co-host that has to be there with me every single time that we run a show, making sure that if we do have guests that either fly in from a different state to be on the show or have, people Zoom in and having us do kind of like a virtual podcast, something like that. There's a lot of moving parts with that, and it's going to be very complex. And so the logistics of it is going to be really complicated, which is another reason why I felt like bringing in a production company to handle some of that stuff would be a much better idea. But to be honest with you, I've been excited about a lot of projects, but I have to say that, I was wanting to start a podcast at the beginning of 2020, and then COVID hit, and then that essentially squashed any potential of us doing a podcast at that time because I couldn't really be around anyone else to do the podcast with, let alone figure out how to set it up without professional help. So I basically had all this podcast equipment sitting around for a couple of years now, and so it feels really good to now eventually have this come back up on my project board to get started. And we're definitely going to commit to at least 52 episodes, so that's one a week for an entire year. And I just hope and pray that I can get enough sponsors to help cover the costs of that. Otherwise, that is going to eat into my retirement savings. Nevertheless, stay tuned to the channel because I am going to be making more announcements as the time gets closer to when we actually launch this podcast. I can tell you that I'm shooting for a target of about 4 to 6 weeks from this video right here. We will have to run a pilot episode that will not be aired. We might record it and air it later, but that's kind of to just get our feet wet with how the whole production actually works. And then I will, of course, be announcing to you guys the date that we will go live with the podcast, and then we will just hit the ground running. So make sure that you guys are not doing anything on Thursday evenings for the next year because I will be having some really awesome content on there. And I really think that you guys are going to love Dr. Rachel Cook. I think that you're going to love Kelsey Beck. I think that you're going to love everybody that we bring on there because, as you can tell, I'm a high energy individual and I do really good, interacting with other people because I find other people really interesting. I like other people's point of view, and I think that that's going to create a really interesting dynamic for you guys to watch. With that said, I really appreciate you watching this vlog all the way to the end. If you are not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and as always, I'll see you next week.